What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of the VY. Starting to move along a fair bit with this build now, which is awesome. Today we're going to look at getting this shifter installed in the interior and trying to refit everything around the shifter to make it look as stock as possible. The owner would really like to make it look, as tidy and as stock as it can just with the Magnum Grip shifter, which I can definitely get around because I really like the look of that. So we'll have a bit of mucking around to do, trying to get it in there and try and get it to look right and get everything fitted back in around it. But it'll be worth it in the end once it's all in there and nice. So I haven't had a look at what we can do as far as a boot for it goes yet. So we'll just have to see what it looks like and what we can fit in. So I did talk about in the end of the last episode about how the wings on the gearbox are actually looking like they're going to be in the way of our pipes. They are definitely going to be in the way. So I'll give you a look at that in a minute, but I'm going to do some research as to what sort of options we have, because I would rather, if there is another option that we can take, I'd rather not have to cut them wings off the box. It's a brand new Turbo 400, the last thing we really want to go do is cut it up. So if we can avoid it, we will at all costs, but it may be an unavoidable thing. So anyway, we'll just see how we go. But anyway, we'll get into getting the shifter in, mounted up. So you can see that wing there on the gearbox on the Turbo 400. That is very much in the way. Very prevalent on this side, even more so on the driver's side, because as you can see, up over that steering shaft is where the one runner goes from the first cylinder on this bank, and that is directly in the way, that wing on the gearbox. So that's what we might have to cut off. It wouldn't be a big deal to cut them off. I'm not worried about cutting them off, I just would rather not. As you can see here as well, now the bonnet's back on. So Rex helped me put the bonnet back on yesterday, last night before he went to work. So we have no bonnet clearance with the throttle body up this way, with ISC and stuff on top. Hits the bonnet. If we flip the throttle body around, which you might have saw yesterday afternoon, we had it flipped upside down. It does clear, but it's still just not very good. There's not really any good solution for our throttle cable or anything else like that. So we have got onto ProFlow because ProFlow seemed to think that this should clear. Yeah, it's been a bit of a saga. We actually bought a 45-degree elbow off ProFlow. That's what they told us that you needed to make this manifold clear with a VY, or VT to VZ essentially. What we found was that the elbow pointed it directly at the water pump. For those of you who've been following this build series, you would have probably remembered seeing that, but yeah, pointed directly at the water pump. It was no good, it didn't work at all. We had a look on the website. It seems as though that the elbow is actually designed to work with an older design of manifold which had a flat flange, like a fully 90-degree flat surface for a flange, which, if it was mounted flat with a 45-degree elbow, that'd probably work quite well. But obviously at some point they've changed the design of this manifold and they've angled this flange down for the throttle body, which has changed things a fair bit. So everyone at ProFlow doesn't seem to really know what's going on. Every time we call them, they just don't really understand. ProFlow is quite a massive company. They deal with thousands and thousands of products. So obviously you could be forgiven for not being able to call and talk to someone who knows exactly this particular product. But nonetheless, we can't get any information out of them about a solution. So we're trying to explore. Like I said here in the last episode, I'm not too fussed on this manifold. I don't particularly think it's a great thing. But the customer really wanted something that was going to present quite well. This is what the customer wanted, so we're going to do our best to try and make it work. So this runner here on the driver's side is the problem. Your intermediate steering shaft's meant to run down through this hole, and that runs along the block and then down, and as you can see on that gearbox wing, that is right in the way. So that's going to be a problem. Anyway, we've got our lovely B&M Magnum Grip. Really cool shifter. It's the same one we run in the Land Cruiser. It's awesome. We really like these shifters. Rex actually has one in Raucous as well. So they're not actually a ratchet, as I was explaining in the last episode. This is just a bit hard to do with one hand, hold on. So they're not a ratchet, they are a gated shifter. So as you can see, that's first gear. With the handle open, you can push through to first and it stops. You can't go any further than that. Sorry, that's second, sorry, my bad. You push through to second and it stops. You can't go any further than that, won't go any more. So then for second to third, you pull the lever, as you can see, pushes the gate down. So you pull the lever up into third, won't go any further, lever locks until it's pulled back a little bit. So that's third gear, so you can't accidentally go to neutral. Pull it back, we'll leave it in third, so now that's in third, and from third, lever open, you can push through to neutral. And then for reverse, you have a reverse lockout, which also is a lockout for park, which you have to push down. Oops, sorry, got to point the camera in the right direction. Push down, and you can push it forward to park. It's yeah, they're a really cool shifter. We like them a lot. So this is what's going in this car. Got our muscle guard shifter plate, so we removed the stock shifter out of the VY. This bolts down to the tunnel, and then we can mount this on here, like so, run our cable, and Bob's your Arnie. Easy as that, simple. The less simple part of this install is trying to get all this back in, get it all back around. So I'm hoping that little boot on that auto shifter there fits back onto this Magnum Grip pretty well, and I can make it sort of look really nice somehow. But anyway, like I said, it's going to take just a bit of figuring out, but it is what it is. Righto, so I got there in the end, a little bit of patience, it's all good. But how good's this? I don't know about you guys, but I just love this sort of thing. Oh, how good's that? Oh, yum. It's just, yeah, it's great. I love working on cars and finding that sort of thing. It's great, I love it. Anyway, now I've got to get under the car and actually unbolt the shifter, and then I can pull it out the top. So I'll lift it up and do that. And then we can look at how a new one's going to mount in. Alright, one less stock shifter. Yeet that out. Go get our muscle guard shifter plate. Alright, so this is what we're working with. It's looking pretty damn good. Because Matt, the guy who owns this car, is like a big dude. He's as tall as me. Might even be taller. So I'm just trying to mount it as far back as I sort of can with it actually still being functional and looking alright. I think where it is there is pretty good. That's in neutral, where that shifter is at the moment. So she's pretty dang cool. Boop. Righto, we got bolted up. So, ready to go back in the car again for another dummy fit. Alright, so that first position is not going to work because in park it's just too far forward that it just touches the radio buttons, which is just enough that it's going to piss me off, which means it's got to get moved. So I've got to move it back, which means I won't be able to run the driver's side rear bolt in the shifter plate because it'll be in the wrong position, right in the way of the shifter. But I don't think it'll matter too much. Still having like 3 decent sized bolts and then 3 bolts in the shifter, I think it should be fine. But as you can see, as we start to come back any further, it's going to be encroaching on this bolt. So my options are pretty much either cut up the shifter, which I don't want to do at all, or just, yeah, leave this bolt out and probably leave this bolt out. So that's probably what's going to happen. The other thing is, as we move back, you can see where the bolts currently are at the back, and those are right on the edge of the body there, the actual metal. So I'm going to have to notch this out to clear the bolts in the new location. Anyway, a lot of you guys know that I hate working in interiors. I don't like working in interiors of cars. It's fiddly, it's little, it's a pain in the ass, I hate it. But you got to be really patient with this sort of work to get a good result. It is just, yeah, I'm not having much fun, but I'm really going to take my time. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to make sure this is spotty dog because it makes all the difference, especially when you're driving a car. The interior is where you spend all your time. It's, you know, it's the connection between the driver and what the car is. So it's important to have the interior, I feel, done well and set out properly and ergonomically comfortable. So as important as it is, I just hate it. So anyway, I'm just going to keep moseying on, make sure this is spotty dog. The other thing I have to figure out is we actually have to make a penetration now for the shifter cable. So the Turbo 400 is a cable shift instead of having an arm like the stock one was. So I've got to actually put a penetration up further up where we can get the cable through and still have a nice bend radius and get it down to where the box, where the shifter linkage is on the box, without having it anywhere near an exhaust so that it doesn't melt, and making sure, yeah, none of the bend radiuses are too tight that it affects the cable. It's a bit of mucking around. The other thing we have to sort out is because we're not having a 4L60E anymore, and there's no, I suppose what you'd say, a sensor to say that the gearbox is in reverse, we have to come up with a new way to trigger the reverse lights. So B&M actually supply you a micro switch for doing reverse lights for the shifter, but we've still got to wire that in because I believe the way these are stock, it must be the BCM has the control, or might even be the PCM has reverse control, but obviously with the Turbo 400 there's no electronics to tell the ECU or the PCM that it's in reverse. So just problems we've got to consider. Alright, let's try this new position. Hopefully this works a bit better. Alright, so we're just off like 10 mil off the buttons. So just enough. Still a pain in the ass, but it is just off the buttons. So now I've got to put the actual console back over it and double check that first and all the way through doesn't contact anything in the console again. Alright, so there's a rough fit up. This is such a long and tedious process. In and out, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out. There's a pretty rough fit up. This boot's a bit small. It really does need a bigger boot, but it'll do for now. That is first. So we've got first, see the boot sort of just reaches. It's not too bad. First, second, third, neutral, and then push that forward. It's just really hard to do all this while it's not secured properly still. Oh yeah, no, that boot will work the way it is. That's not too bad. That boot can stay in there. So anyway, that's park, as you can see. Just got clearance, just enough. Come back. Come on. This fucking thing keeps catching. Anyway, still have to do with one hand. Alright, so now just going to do a little bit of clearancing on this. Firstly, where the actual, what would you call it, the receiver for the cable on the shifter keeps catching on this, so I've got to grind that back. And also where the cable is going to be going through here is going to have to get notched out. So I'll clearance that, and then I can actually probably look at mounting this shifter. Again, it's going to be pretty hard by myself, so I might have to wait for Rex. And continue looking at where this cable's going to go. Much better. Alright, so I was just looking at this gate here, which is actually the contact switch for the neutral and reverse lockout, or lights I should say, neutral lockout and reverse lights. And they're actually meant to give you 2 micro switches, which they're only giving me 1. So you're meant to stack them so that the reverse is on top. Because I was having a look at this. That's your contact for your reverse, this is the shifter in reverse as it is. So that's meant to be, you know, up like that, on reverse, that's going to be, you know, turn the lights on. And then the bottom one is neutral, so that it only starts when it's in park or in neutral and doesn't start in those gears. And that's the little bracket to mount the switches on. So, bit of a stalemate at the moment until I can get, really would like to get a reverse one for these reverse lights. Anyway, I'll leave the shifter at that for now. I'll go on with trying to get this cable through the floor at least. And then when Rex gets up, we'll have a discussion about how we're going to set up the neutral safety and the reverse lights before we go mounting it. I need his help to mount the shifter anyway, so. Alright, so I've got our cable through, drilled a hole, see it better on this side. So I managed to get a hole just up there, not far from the shifter there. It's not amazing, but definitely the best place I could find to actually put one, where I could get at it, you know, well enough. I tried to tighten these up, but as I thought, just impossible without someone in the car to hold a bolt head, particularly because they're nylock, so I'm gonna have to wait for Rex. So I've started sorting out our linkage for the Turbo 400. However, same issue with this gearbox bracket I had in the last episode. Being Turbo 400, a lot of this hardware is Imperial, so I'm gonna, yeah, once again I need to try and find some Imperial stuff to set up the linkage, to set up the cable there. So yeah, sort of at a bit of a stalemate now with that, because I can't get anything else together inside until I've got the shifter tightened down, which I can't do until I get some help, and I can't set up the linkage on the box because I don't have the right hardware right now. I'm pretty sure Rex has got some around somewhere, but like I said in the last episode, I don't know where his Imperial stuff is, so it's going to be a bit of a pause on this thing for the moment. So I put it off for long enough. I decided to test fit these pipes and see if they clear. So as you can see, the passenger side here, push it down properly. Don't know if you can see down there. This is hard with the camera. So you can see down there, does clear. We're all good on the passenger side. Looks pretty good. Actually, it might just be touching underneath. It's very hard to tell. I think it might be actually. Drop something. Sweet. Oh, and then the driver's side. what a bitch this was to get in. Had to drop the rack, had to take this little thing off there, and what a pain. But same deal. Again, very hard probably to see with the camera. Try and get it down. Alright, let's go. Now, this camera doesn't focus at the best of times, so can't expect any better of it. But anyway, you see that there? Same thing where it's just touching the front side of that runner. So both sides, I reckon, just a little bit of an attitude adjustment, a bit of a ball peen hammer, and they should fit a lot better. I did actually, when I went down, I was looking for another boot for that shifter. I noticed that I still had my Tri-Y Genie extractors, which also could have done the job, but as you can see, they're much smaller, definitely not as big as the nice big 4-ender ones. So they wouldn't have performed as well, but it may have been an option instead of trimming the gearbox. But nonetheless, I decided to try fit these pipes, and hey presto, they actually will fit with a little bit of fine tuning. So that's good. That's a pretty good outcome. So the fun part now is I've got to get them back out so I can trim them up. Maybe not, I don't know, I'll see what I can do. I'll figure something out. Now see, they're made like that. Thanks very much, that's much better. Alright, so we've got some pipes just sat in there. Obviously sat in because I still haven't got the gaskets ready or anything like that. And particularly, definitely not rushing into doing anything with this side until we've got the starter in. Being how much of a bitch it was to get this pipe in, I'm not going to go putting the rack or that little angle bit that I had to take out, that thing there, until we have the starter in, because chances are we're probably going to have to move it to get the starter in there. So I can't put the starter in until the converter bolts are done, which, as I talked about in the last episode, I need Rex's help for. So for now, that's how it's going to be. But I am stoked that that these are going to fit, and we don't have to cut the gearbox or do anything like that. That's awesome, because honestly, for what this motor is, these nice big 3-inch sort of 4-ender ones are going to be a much better performing header than the Tri-Ys there. So, all right, guys. So given the fact that I sort of need Rex's help to continue on with the shifter and the gearbox and getting the motor and the torque converter to the flex plate bolted up, so that we can finish the starter and the pipes and everything else, I'm going to leave that here for this episode. But the good news is, considering now that we don't have to trim the wings off the box or do anything silly like that, the box doesn't have to come out. We were sort of going along the path of potentially having to take the box out. That's why we haven't been doing a lot of finalising things. Now that we know that these pipes fit and they're in there, we don't have to pull the box. We can go ahead and sort of finish everything up, which is awesome. So it means a lot less work for potentially what this build's going to be. So that's good. So we'll continue on this with the next episode. Try and get a lot of this finished off the next episode. We're still waiting on our injector extenders to make sure the injectors are going to work with the rail for that manifold. Hopefully we hear back from ProFlow soon about what we can actually do to make it work, or what their suggestion is, because when you pay that much for a manifold and they tell you it's going to clear, you sort of want to make sure it's going to clear, or ask them what their solution is going to be. But once we have a solution for the manifold and we know that our injection extenders are going to work, we're going to go ahead and change all the injector plugs on the loom to suit the newer sort of style plugs on the L98 injectors. And then all of that can start getting laid back in, and we're on our way. So this thing hopefully shouldn't be too much longer. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it as always. Head to the shop, grab yourself something nice. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out. See you, bye.